So, what we're going to do now is to make a surreal montage. Montage is pulling different images together and making a new creation. And it was sort of invented after the World War One by the Dadaists who just refused to. They sort of said the world is so crazy. This is the sort of crazy art we're going to make. One collection of people who make montage with scissors, knives and magazines are the Edinburgh Collage Collectives. And what I like about lots of their work is that quite often there isn't a lot of that's actually happened in the collage. Look at that. That's hilarious. And this is so surreal. And this is, here's like a lobster head, is it, on top of a person? So it's quite often what I quite like about their cleverness is the simplicity. Look at that. Two cut together with like a David Bowie. It's something like this. We're not going to aim to create a photorealistic montage. We're going to create something crazy, and montage has been used as sort of a protest thing for years by the punk rockers, but also by Cold War Steve now, who quite famously takes political figures and creates these scenes. Excuse me. Often in very sort of grimy situations or historical paintings. So we're going to attempt to do something like that. So there's another site here for finding high quality images that are free to use. But again, always keep a reference to them. So if I wanted to search here, because we don't just want objects, we also need backgrounds as well. So if I wanted perhaps a beach, or you can see these are some what you might call high quality images that are also very large, and so quite often very good for printing. So I quite like that water, quite like those chairs. So again, I can download again. You can see it's saying to say thanks, so I'll just keep a reference for later, because I may not choose to use this at the moment. I'm just trying to build up a collection of images that I may use. So now we're in the position, we've probably got lots of images. There are two tools here, Remove BG and Background Burner, that do similar things. We will get to doing this by hand yourself, because it's the best way to do it. But if you want to take the background off an object, this tool is amazing. Remember, before we looked at that search engine that had lots of them already done. So if you can assemble things out of that, that's okay. But often you find a picture where the background's in there. So I can choose which image I want to use. So what might make a good one? Let's have a look. Maybe that lighthouse. There's a crab there. Let's see how it does with that crab. So, not a bad job. That would take a long time to do. It's missed some of the shadow, but I could live with that. Now, when it creates a, it takes out the background. You can see there's some straw there. It's not actually an antenna, I don't think. I will have to clean it up a little bit, but it gives me a PNG file, and PNG files are a little bit like JPEGs, photographs, except you can have transparent areas, which makes them really great for working with. But it gives us a smaller version than the original, so I think you have to pay if you want to use a very large, high-quality image. So let's download that crab there. So we've got it's got a background. It'll have no background when we use it. And we can do that to some other ones, or we can do that sort of thing using tools and a little bit more time and skill. And we'll cover that in another session in a tool like Photopea. So we've got some that have had the background removed already. We've made our own. So we could now go to Photopea. These are my two favourite online free tools to use. Pixel is lots of fun, very easy to use, does lots of things very well. Photopea is the one that's most like Photoshop. because I've used Photoshop in the past, I find it easier. I know where most of the tools are, but it also seems, yeah, whichever you choose. There's some tutorials down the bottom of the page to help you get going, but you can always search YouTube. So let's, for example, begin with opening a picture from our, maybe this one. So there we are. That's a lighthouse that I found earlier. Now, if I want to bring in another picture, I have to do what's called open and place. Or I could open another picture and it would be in a new tab. I do both. So let's try open and place. And let's maybe pick one of my crabs. So you can see here, the first thing to notice is the sizes are different, and that will happen lots. So we need to know how to be able to size either the entire image or an individual image. So if you see at this side here, this is one of the most important areas. These are the layers, and they are literally like stacked on top of each other. So with this layer selected, and trust me, you will always select the wrong layer like I do, I can come down to here and transform it and scale, and that gives it the handles that I can drag it down in size. If I hold down the shift key, it keeps it in proportion. So I might have a huge crab attacking this lighthouse, like so. So let's have a look at some of the other features of the things that we can do, because working with layers is just one thing, but let's maybe just try a different picture. I'm going to get a lighthouse this time. There we go. And what might I bring into it this time? Let's have a look. Now we can do open and place, but that kind of does a strange thing. Let's maybe do it. Let's look for this crab here. We can see it's very small. Now this crab, we want to be beside this one, but we sort of think it's sort of facing the wrong way. But also, when we just pull a picture in, quite often the image needs what's called rasterizing, which is a strange thing. But it kind of means turning it into a picture, because it's kind of got all the information there linked to the original file. So this is now something that we can edit and work with and paint on. So I'm going to click on that layer, and then from the edit menu and transform, I might do things like flip it horizontally. But I might also want to do some more unusual things. Let's do some silly things. Let's do like distort. And what that allows me to do is to completely bend the picture. And when I'm happy with that, I can double click, and then that's there in a layer. There are also lots of really interesting filters. So if I wanted to click on the background or on any layer that I had and look at the filters, we can do strange blurry things. So if we wanted to create a situation, let's say where something was moving, we could say, well, how many pixels might it be blurred by, and by what angle? So you can see that now. Look, can see the background has a sort of a blurred effect. I'm going back, but there's also lots of quite crazy ones. We can mosaic this and choose how big we want the cells to be. We might do some of the other ones, oil paint. That might take a while. Oh, there we go. So we can say okay. Doesn't look a lot different, that one. Let's undo that. And so quite often, the way these work depends on the photograph. So, ripple might make something look like a puddle. So it's worth just playing with these, but also it's always worth playing with the layer filters, where you can get some crazy effects such as saturation and colour and darken. I tend to just see. I quite like that effect. But let's go back to normal. Let's say we wanted this to look a bit more like a Banksy. What we might do is quite often I first of all make it grayscale, which takes the colour out. So in the image menu and adjustments, there are lots of interesting ways to manipulate the image. So we, for example, if I was to desaturate, takes all the colour out. But that quite often that has lots of grain there, and I want something that's a lot more stark. So I might, for example, play with the brightness and contrast, or the levels is quite often a fun way to really play with the contrast in this picture and get exactly what you want. There we are. Almost want a white background there, almost like a non-existent. I had it better earlier. So you can see I'll start to make, and then I might want to do the same for this layer. This is almost preparation for going black and white, if you like, or I could carry on working like this. But one of the adjustments that I might make is called threshold, and that turns into pure black and white, not grayscales. And here I can choose just the right amount of detail. And if I want to do that to the background, I'd do the same thing. I might sort of say, well, I want to be able to see more of the... There we go. So I've created almost a Banksy-like image, but oh look, there's some up here that some sort of shading that I don't want. So I can easily come into the background, drag this, delete it. Oh look, it's deleted the white. So what I might have to do is choose a white colour, and then use, behind this gradient tool is the paint bucket fill tool. So there we go. I can fix that. So what other tools do we have? We have tools for selection, such as lassos for going around things. We have tools or squares. And when you click these, there's always a collection of extra tools. So feather gives things a soft edge. There's a cropping tool, a pipette tool, which we can't use. That tells you what colour there is. There's brush and pencils, and photo fixing tools. We'll cover those. We'll cover those in a minute. In a minute. And there's rubber, and blurring tools, and text tools. Now, quite often it's a good idea. Lots of people do put text onto using Photoshop. So if I click on text and put an area and put help, the text is coming up very small because we've got a big picture. Let's try and make it bigger. And you can see there's a number there and it's still not big enough, so I think I probably need it to be about 600. Will it do 600? Maybe it won't. Maybe it won't let me. Maybe choose a different font. Yeah, I think... Oh. Yeah, there we go. So, what's the fonts that I need to use? Oh, here we go. This is where we choose it, yeah. What fonts do we have? There's quite a funky one. Now, quite often people add text in Photoshop, and that's okay. But sometimes you use what's called a vector program to assemble your pictures and different graphical items such as shapes and colours and gradients and things. So just bear that in mind. So we've made our postcard flyer now, and we want to save this. So the same thing applies. We would save our Photoshop file because that's got all the different layers in, and we also then export as a PNG. And again, this is a big image, so we might want to resize it. I'm going to say 1000 and hit return, and it's a 664. Okay, and then save that. So we've got here a smaller black and white image that we can use for our whatever we need.